We are a covenantal community founded on love and a common devotion to free faith. We welcome each other into this virtual space. We especially welcome our visitors. Perhaps you are new or seeing this on our YouTube page later. We're so glad you're here. We invite you to comment and connect with us in the comment section or via our website or our Facebook page. We join with all member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association in affirming and promoting the inherent dignity and worth of every person, justice, equity, and compassion in all human relations and systems of society. We bear witness to the pain and suffering of Black, Indigenous, and other persons of color in all communities across this nation. And we continue in our commitment to dismantle systems of oppression in order to build a better world. Black lives matter. Our church website and Facebook page have information about our activities. Also, members and friends, please remember that the best way to stay updated on congregational news is to read the Newsnet emails, the weekly e-blast, the monthly online newsletter, and our Facebook posts. We light this chalice as a beacon of our faith and as a reminder of our commitment to a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. We worship together, though we are at a distance, by celebrating that which is sacred to us individually and collectively. Our opening words this morning are called Into the Circle by Reverend David Breeden. We gather into this circle. We gather into this circle of care to dream, to envision, to embody, and achieve the compassion we dream, the justice we envision, the dignity of each and every ever-growing circle of love and justice. Our meditative music is for all that is our lives. While it's playing, think about your breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Find your comfortable spot. We also invite you to share your joys and sorrows via the chat box while our meditation music plays. Well, this morning, our speaker is a child of our congregation. I guess I can call her the Reverend Amanda Schuber. And today she's going to be talking about something I think we have all experienced over the last several years with COVID, the plague of loneliness. Amanda?
So our title changed a little bit, and I didn't tell Mom, unfortunately. We're actually talking about circles today and widening our circles. So that was my fault. I apologize for that. But our opening words this morning come with a quote from Leslie Hazelton from Agnostic, a Spiritual Manifesto. There is a classic Zen exercise called Enso. The circle hand-drawn in a single fluid brushstroke. It is close to perfect, but never there. If perfection is what you want, you can produce it anytime by using a compass or a computer. but the enso defies such mechanical precision. Indeed, it is often incomplete, left slightly open as though an invitation to everything beyond it. And each one is different, never the same circle twice. You can even see the hairs of the brush in the drag of the ink on the paper. Trace the fluidity of the moment when the stillness of meditation was released in one rapid stroke, and sense the calm grace of the artist. The beauty of the Zen circle lies precisely, or more precisely, imprecisely, in its imperfection. That's what speaks to us and draws us in. A perfect circle isn't very interesting, a closed system containing nothing at all, while an imperfect one vibrates with warmth. It invites us into the moment of its creation, into that single deep exhalation as the hand arced through the air, the brush over the paper. It is open, human, fallible, an expression that is of the soul. Now, it all started simply enough. I needed a 3-hour class to round out my schedule for my last year at university. This wouldn't have been a big deal, except I had been in college a while and had exhausted the list of elective classes that I was even remotely interested in taking. There had been the whole gauntlet of theater classes, a few in anthropology, a really fun one about the methods of Jim Henson, and a host of others. That's when I stumbled, literally, I tripped over the curb, just outside the kiln room of the Ceramic Arts Building. And while I sat there hoping that no one saw me stumble, I could hear music blasting from the open doors of the main clay room. Dusting myself off, I peeked in and saw a short man with silver hair sitting at the wheel, making clay dance with just the slightest movements of his hands. Now, we define community as a group of like-minded people, but really, when you break it down, community is so much more of a feeling than anything else. There is a comfort, an ownership even. We claim our various communities with pride and conviction. We seek them out in joy and in sadness, and we fiercely protect them when we fear that they're under threat. Our place in our communities that we claim is unique to each one of us, but just like our families, they compromise a variety of roles that we take on. There are the protectors, the pleasers, some troublemakers, the caretakers, our family mascots, and our community clowns. And these roles become not only familiar, but core to our identity and functioning within that community space. Now, I think that clay is a lot like people. It's different depending on where it came from, what kind of day it is, and who is interacting with it. I didn't expect to be good at creating pottery. I'd never explored the visual arts before that, and I can't even really draw a respectable stick person. But like I said, I needed a filler class, and it happened that Ceramics 101 had a few open seats. On our first day of class, the professor gave each of us, well, both of us, there were only two of us, a softball-sized lump of clay. And he said, you have 1 hour to create something that is you. So we went to work hand building, which is creating something without using the wheel. And I can't tell you now what I made. I honestly don't remember. But what I can tell you is what happened to that creation. Because looking back on it, it was a moment that was essential to my development as a person and even as a future minister. After our hour of hand building, my classmate and I were invited to share explanations of our creations and why they represented who we were. I'm sure I waxed poetic about the spiritual nature of clouds or something like that. But it's what happened next that forever changed me. The professor balled up both of his fists into tight, round power and smashed our creations right in front of us. Two things never to forget, he said. One, you are different now for having created something. You are always changing, and the art that you create changes you. And two, never forget that you can never get too attached to what you think you have created. At any minute, it can and will change. That was the moment I fell in love with art and all it would teach me. I now know that my professor happened to be a UU Buddhist with no shortage of lessons to imprint upon me. The thing that I found I love most about clay is the chance to work with it on the wheel. Now, the wheel can be extremely intimidating. It requires a good bit of physical power married to a really delicate touch. You start a bowl, for instance, by centering the ball, digging your elbows into the sides of your thighs and forcing the clay to find the center of the wheel while it spins. As you press in, you feel for the moment where you achieve the perfect center. Now, I can't tell you exactly what that feels like. You just know it. It's just right. The clay and the wheel are in balance and there is no wobble. Once you know that the clay is centered, you create the opening, pushing in and pulling out, creating an expanding circle. So much of clay work is a judgment call. You have to trust yourself to feel and know where the limit is. Now, I know that we experience the same feeling in our churches and our communities, the balance where we all know our place and we are secure in our understanding that our roles are essential to that balance. And I won't deny it, that equilibrium is an awesome place to find yourself. It's comfortable, predictable, safe even. There's little conflict and generally even less change. Everything is humming along. It's going nicely, and we can go on for years in this seemingly well-oiled machine until one day, either by chance or challenge, we find that the circle we've created has gotten or has been allowed to have always been too small. And this is where our denomination finds itself right now. Our circle of welcome that for many felt adequate, inviting, and connected has been critiqued and found to not be as welcoming to those on the outside, to people of color, to people with accessibility needs, and a whole host of others. This has been a really hard reckoning for many because we set out to create a beloved community and perhaps we thought we had achieved it, only to be told that we're lacking and in some cases directly resistant. My ceramics professor used to always tell me that you need to know the direction you were headed and then be brave enough to let the journey take you where you needed to go. And if clay work has taught me anything, it's taught me that my vision was a small part of that process. And if I was doing it right, I would only hold a loose idea of what the final product might actually look like. When you sit at that wheel with your clay centered, that first opening created, you take your hands and you feel the thickness of the wall, one hand on the inside of the vessel and the other on the out. And with the slightest of pressure, you move or pull your hand upward for height or outward to create width, making space, testing the limits of how big, how wide we can go. I've made some beautiful bowls, only to have them push in around the middle or flare out at the top unexpectedly as I make one last final pull. And when I first started on the wheel, I would give up, I would be exasperated, and I would crush the whole thing, start over, my vision having not been achieved. But as I worked with it more over the years, I've come to understand that these unplanned changes was the clay telling me what it wanted to be, despite what my vision might have been. Because in front of me, there was art, a vessel to be seen, sometimes used. I found it didn't have to look. In fact, it rarely looked like what I had planned in my head. And yet, it was beautiful, joyful, inviting. When we are asked to alter our vision of our communities, to widen that circle, to pull the space a few more directions, it can be far too easy to become frustrated when those communities look or feel different than the vision that we had always held for them. But like clay work, building and expanding community requires a deeply personal vulnerability from each of us, the willingness to trust ourselves and each other, to listen, to alter the course. As the circle widens, it will buckle, it will flare, and there will be wobbles and unexpected outcomes. There will be moments where we stand back and admire all that has been accomplished, and others where we tilt our head and wonder, where did it go off center? This is to say nothing of what we're faced with in the fire of the kiln, or life, as it were, where we test what we have created with a prayer that it won't explode under the heat and pressure. There is an assurance, though, that even if it does blow up and what we build cracks, that we are hopefully better for our experience of daring to push that limit of what we thought was possible. After all, there is more clay, more grace of our communities, more chances to make it bigger and better, more diverse, more colorful, each time that we have the courage to invest ourselves in the possibility of widening the circle and creating something wonderful. Amen, and blessed be. It's not often that I give you homework, but this week I'm giving you homework, and I hope you will accept the challenge. It's no secret that our circle has become smaller over COVID and over the years, and that we seek to expand out again, to pull the edges of that clay. So this week, this Valentine's Day week, I invite you to think about the people who are not here in this community, the ones we miss, the ones we haven't seen in a while. I challenge you to get in touch, call, email, send a text, drop a little something on the front door with 3 of those people. 3 people who you miss in this community. Let them know you're thinking about them, that we miss them, that we love them, and that we want them to be part of our ever-expanding circle. I hope you'll join me in my challenge. May it be so.
Thank you, Amanda. Our closing words are Reverend Rod Richards. You won't be alone. We'll be side by side with one another, with people yet to come, with partners we have yet to meet, creating ever widening, perfectly imperfect, precisely imprecise circles and ovals and oblong things of beauty as we practice sacred flexibility, welcoming love and healing pain and demanding justice and saving lives. Go forth and make some new shapes. As we extinguish this flame, this chalice, let us always remember that we carry the light within ourselves, which brings healing to a broken world and hope for the days ahead. Please join us directly after service for coffee that you provide and conversation. Let us go in peace.